I'm Alexis Christoforous, and today we are talking about Michael Bloomberg's presidential run. Who should fear his late entry into the race more, the Democrats or Donald Trump? And of course, I'm joined as always
or nobody,
by Rick Newman, or nobody. Off the cuff, who should fear him more, the Democrats? You think?
I don't know. I mean, we're all puzzling this out. So within the Democratic field, he's most similar to Joe Biden. He is a centrist. He's socially liberal and a centrist. So he does not want to attack Wall Street, just as Joe Biden. Joe Biden says, nobody needs to be punished, and that seems to be kind of where Bloomberg is coming from. So he's cozy with Wall Street, obviously. I mean, his firm is a Wall Street firm, basically. He doesn't really seem to have a problem with business the way Elizabeth Warren does. She wants to break up the big tech companies. He's saying nothing about that. He did say we should have higher taxes on the wealthy, so that's basically where all the Democrats stand. He hinted where he stands on health care, which is one of the biggest issues for Democratic voters. He says if you can't get insurance, you should be able to get it. And if you have insurance you like, you should be able to keep it. So that's basically the public option idea. Again, that's a Biden idea and a Pete Buttigieg idea. So Mike Bloomberg, in terms of the front runners, he's very similar on policy to Joe Biden and to Pete Buttigieg. But of course, he has a very different background. So Biden is he's worked for the government for almost his entire life. Pete Buttigieg is only 37 years old. Bloomberg obviously made his money starting and running a company. I mean, he made tons of money.
He's worth $55 billion, I think, last check.
And Trump is only worth $3 billion, so that probably nettles Trump. So we kind of know who Mike Bloomberg is. What we don't know is he going to connect with people? And he's starting right out of the gate, spending millions on ads.
Single largest political advertising purchase in history, $35 million for TV ads. And in fact, I just saw his first one yesterday. So he's hit the ground running. But I think you make a great point. He was mayor of New York City for 3 terms. That is, unprecedented, right? I believe.
Yeah. He had the law changed so he could go for a 3rd term.
Right. And so I think his reputation, I think he's thought of positively here in New York City, and he has the reputation here in the city. But how will that translate nationally? There was this recent poll, a Reuters Ipsos poll, that found less than half the respondents even knew who he was. So that's going to be a huge hurdle for him.
Yeah.
Just telling the folks, this is who I am and this is what I've done.
That's right. And in polls saying, would you vote for him, given all the other Democrats, I think he gets between 1% and 2%. Now, that was before he actually jumped in and ran. So what I think could happen here is you can spend a lot of money on advertising. So that will help with name recognition. Money can buy name recognition. But money cannot buy a connection with voters, and I think that's the big difference. So more people will know his name, more people will begin to know a little bit about him, but that's not going to necessarily endear him to voters. And the kind of politics we have in this country, the reason that those politicians are all out in Iowa and they're going to be out there in the snow, some of them were in the snow last year, is because it does matter. Face-to-face contact matters.
Stumping matters, right?
Is Bloomberg even going to show up in some of these, at some of these town halls? Or is he just going to basically try to mail it in from corporate HQ in New York City? We don't know.
Well, right now,
but he's got to show. You cannot advertise your way to the presidency. That alone
no, and
won't
I can tell you, it sounds a
working.
little bit like sour grapes from some of these Democrats.
Sure.
Bernie Sanders accuses Bloomberg of trying to buy the election. Warren, this is a quote, "We need to build a grassroots movement. That's how democracy is supposed to work."
Yeah.
Really. But interestingly...
Well, let's be fair. Bloomberg's answer to them is, you guys suck as candidates.
That's right. I mean, pretty much that's his message.
And you can see
I think
his
you just
point.
summed up his
honestly, you can see his point, which is Elizabeth Warren, if she's close to being the front runner, to be the guy running against the person, I should say, running against Donald Trump, trying to beat him next November, saying, I want to take everybody's health care insurance away. I mean, that is, even among people who don't like Trump, I think Bloomberg's right. I think if Elizabeth Warren is the nominee, and I don't think Bernie Sanders has a chance, but Elizabeth Warren does have a chance, I just think that's an untenable position as a general election
and makes her
Democrat. You cannot win
vulnerable.
moderates and independents by telling them that.
But here's a thought. Will Mike Bloomberg split the vote for the Democratic primary ticket such that he actually plays to Bernie Sanders or to Warren?
We don't know, and he doesn't know.
But that is a risk he takes here.
I don't know if it is, because so here's what we know about his strategy. He is not going to do the usual traditional thing and spend, the little bit of remaining time left before the first votes get cast. He's not going to focus on the early states, Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina. Those states don't have a lot of votes. And the reason that candidates spend so much time there is momentum. If you can win one of those states or come in, a tight second or third or have a surprise showing, you generate momentum. People say, oh, wow, this guy is connecting with voters more than I realized, or this woman. But that's kind of the only reason. The big votes are all in the most populated states. And that seems to be what Bloomberg's going after. So California has 10 times as many delegates as Iowa does. New York State and Texas. I mean, those are the big. That's where the votes are. So we might see that kind of campaign. And given what Trump did in 2016, I mean, I'm not sure there's any kind of rule book anymore. All the Democrats have been running traditional campaigns, show up in Iowa for months and months, go to all these town halls, Elizabeth Warren with her selfies, hit every
I don't know.
county.
Maybe Mike Bloomberg's onto something with this strategy.
Who knows?
But you know what? As
the one thing I will just keep going back to is if it's just advertising,
right.
I don't care if he spends $10 billion on ads. If that's all he's going to do, he's not going to.
Right, and that brings me to my next point. So if the rules of the Democratic National Committee hold through 2020, Mike Bloomberg wouldn't even be able to participate in any of the televised debates because under those rules, you're supposed to, I guess, raise so much money in sort of a grassroots type movement, which he's already said he's not going to accept, right?
Yeah, he's not going to waste his time trying to get donations from anybody.
But is there any substitute for going toe-to-toe with the candidates for the American voter? In a
by the way,
debate setting.
as an aside, let me just say there's one refreshing thing about the fact that he's not trying to raise money is when you go to his website, you don't get a pop-up very first thing that says, please donate money. Every other candidate, you go to their website and you get that, you actually want to find out what's going on with their candidates. You got to get through that. So you don't have to do that on Bloomberg's site. I think that do you think the debates have been good?
I think they've been entertaining.
Boy, you are a glutton for punishment.
But you know what, too? They've also taught me more about who these candidates are because I didn't know much about Pete Buttigieg and Kamala Harris. So I think in that respect, they sort of did their job for me because now I know who these folks are and what they believe in.
I guess that's a good point. I'm not sure these debates count for very much. For one thing, we've seen declining viewership. I mean, for like the last four, it's just been going down, down, down. That just seems to suggest either people are not generating interest or they feel like if they've seen one, they've seen enough. And when I watch them, I feel like having 10 people on stage is counterproductive because it all comes down to, Joe Biden's going to get a 30-second soundbite on something. Is he going to slip up or not? I mean, you actually, there comes a point when you actually want to hear them say what they think.
And there's no time to do that.
Yeah, it's just so rapid fire, and they all have their prepared lines because they know they're only going to get a very limited amount of time to speak, blah, blah, blah. It seems to me being in these debates is not a requirement for success. It has been in the past.
He has to have another way, though, than to maybe he will stump a lot and go to these cities and shake hands with a lot of people.
I think Bloomberg needs to learn something from Trump, believe it or not. What Trump did in 2016 and continues to do, the reason Trump won in 2016 was because he did the best job of branding his campaign and his candidacy, and he stuck to it. He was very consistent in his branding. He had a great slogan, Make America Great Again. I'm sorry, I'm getting mixed up with the new slogan. I mean, I totally disagree with a lot of what Trump stands for, but he connected with voters because he convinced them that I'm not the usual and I'm something different. And I thought he had a very simple message. And this is the one thing Trump is actually really good at. It is marketing and branding and putting on a show. That is not something Bloomberg has ever been known for. I mean, he's sort of a technocrat. He's a pragmatist, more of the.
He puts his names on buildings too, though, just like Trump.
That's not enough. For Trump, it's the prodigious use of Twitter, and think when he holds rallies, he just goes around the media. He never requires the media, or else he finds friendly media to help him get his message out. So Trump has found a way to go talk to voters in ways that suit his own interest and aren't governed by anybody else's rules. And I think Bloomberg would need to do something like that too. And I don't know how he would do it. I mean, I cannot see Mike Bloomberg holding rallies in stadiums.
Oh, don't be so sure. He's doing things that we may have never thought he'd do. I mean, he just recently walked back his stop and frisk policy,
well, that's true. Yeah.
And which is one of the things that could actually be a hurdle. And I would imagine if he gets to the debate stage, they're going to punch a lot of holes in that.
They'll punch holes in it whether he's there or not.
And a lot of things. That's very true.
But no one's actually going to be taking jabs at him unless he starts to rise in the polls.
Right.
So.
Because they actually give him credibility when they do start taking jabs.
That's right. If Bloomberg's not even on the stage and they're talking about him, that's a sign of success. And why would they want to? The candidates, what they should be doing is talking about themselves. And if anybody, talking about Trump. I mean, they probably will treat Bloomberg as a distraction unless he becomes more prominent in this campaign.
Well, if you look at the track record, he made a lot of change, positive change here in New York City. Me being a lifelong New Yorker, I can attest to that. He's used his wealth to take on the NRA, something that a lot of the people running, I think all of the Democrats running, really can't talk to, because he really revitalized the gun control movement with things like Moms Demand Action, Every Town for Gun Safety, and also funded major efforts to fight climate change. He's a frequent.
It's ongoing.
Right. He's a frequent speaker at United Nations.
Ongoing,
he's getting mayors from across the country in on climate change. Two areas that are polar opposite of what Trump is about. So the thought process is, I guess, a lot of political pundits are saying if he can make it through the Democratic primaries, he would be a viable contender for Donald Trump. But first, he's got to beat all those Democrats.
I think he could be a strong opponent for Trump if it gets that far, because if that's what actually happens, well, then by definition, he now would have name recognition. Everybody would know who he was. Everybody interested in the campaign and planning to vote would know something about what he stands for. And he would not be scaring people about losing their health insurance. He would not sort of be going down this side road of we need to break up big tech, which, by the way, there are issues with the technology firms, but breaking up Facebook or Amazon is not going to do anything at all to help people with the things that they need help with the most. Job security, right skills for the 21st century digital economy, healthcare, education costs, things like that. Like breaking up Facebook and Amazon won't do a thing for that, and he's not going to be talking about that at all. So, yeah, I think he would be a compelling general election candidate. It's just getting there.
Right. Let's talk about some of the hurdles that could stop him from getting there. So he's made some comments in the past about women. This actually came out when he was running for mayor as well. But remember, it was not the Me Too movement when he was running for mayor.
Right.
It's very much a different world now that he's running for president. He's made crude remarks about women. May that trip him up? Now, let me just say, we have a sitting president who has the whole Stormy Daniels controversy swirling around him, and he seems to have gotten away with that. I don't know people's feelings on that, whether or not, but that's been out in the press.
Well,
and he's surviving that.
That's the right way to frame it. So compared with Trump, Bloomberg will do just fine. So will he also do just fine with his history of stop and frisk, because Trump is the guy who basically praised the racists in Charlottesville in 2017. So compared with Trump, Bloomberg comes off quite favorably. It's getting through the Democratic primary. We keep coming back to this, and this just reminds us that what's happening on the Democratic side this time is the party trying to figure out what does it stand for.
What's its identity, right?
What is its identity? And you've got, obviously, Elizabeth Warren. Last time around in 2016, it was just Bernie Sanders with this yank to the left, and all these heavy-handed government programs. And now it's Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, and they each have a distinct constituency. And if you put them together, it might be 40% of the Democratic Party. So is it enough to get to 50% in the sense that would actually decide who your nominee is? Just unclear. And I mean, there's just not an ordained candidate among the Democrats at this point.
And that's what Michael Bloomberg thought, because he thought it's not too late to get into this race and actually make a difference. When you look at other rich people who have gotten into this race, Tom Steyer, right? You actually interviewed Tom.
I did, yeah.
Steyer. He's sort of a non-entity in all of this. What happened there? Deval Patrick just came in. Is Deval Patrick a billionaire?
No, not even close.
Okay.
No. Deval Patrick might have had a shot had he gotten in a year ago. And I think what happened there is his wife got a cancer diagnosis, and I think that for that reason he decided not to run. He wanted to run a year ago, and he just decided not to. So his wife got better, and just in time, he decided to jump into the race. It's just way too late, and nobody knows who he is. He's a former governor of Massachusetts, for those
He
who
actually
don't know.
had to cancel, I think, a recent event somewhere because
up.
nobody showed up. Oops,
It's
oh boy.
a bit sad.
But Michael Bloomberg wouldn't have that kind of a problem, or would he?
I don't know. I mean, we just don't know this. I mean, if he rented a hall and said, "I'm coming to talk to voters," would people show up?
Outside of New York City.
Outside of New York City. They might, because he can. You know, a lot of this probably has to do with how well his campaign runs. You know, what kind of ads they run and how effective they are. And how well they can actually organize on the ground. The things that we won't actually see, you know, we'll only see the results, but that stuff really matters. And nobody knows if he's going to run a great campaign. I mean, he certainly, as a guy who knows how to start and run a big company, he has the management expertise to do it. But politics is just different from running a business, and politics in the country and out in the Midwest is different from way different from politics in New York City.
I think he's about to learn that too.
Yeah, and he's old. I mean, he's Joe Biden's age,
77.
basically.
Yeah, 77.
You've seen him recently.
Yes, I did. I saw him at a charity event, and he seemed to be very upbeat and full of, you know, he keeps himself in shape and full of energy. So that wouldn't be my concern with Mike Bloomberg. Is he up for the task?
Well, is it your concern with Joe Biden?
Sometimes I have to tell
Because
you, with the way he trips
slips
up,
a little. Yeah.
I do wonder sometimes.
Yeah.
You know.
I think so do a lot of voters, which is why Biden still is the front runner by most measures. He may not be the front runner in Iowa, but he is in most other states. So that's I mean, there is an ordained candidate. There actually is a front runner among the Democrats, and it's Biden.
It keeps flipping. I mean,
everybody just seems uncomfortable.
He's not a front runner,
like Joe Biden's going to keel over at any moment. So we have to have somebody who can make it, who will still be standing a year from now.
Well, also, frankly, this whole Ukraine mess and the implications with his son Hunter certainly don't paint him in the best of lights.
I guess that's fair, but it's really his son Hunter who caused the problem there. I think Joe Biden himself, if he made a mistake, it was just the mistake of looking the other way.
Mm-hmm. You know, Mark Cuban, another billionaire who was thinking about running but has not, he didn't come out and actually endorse Mike Bloomberg, but he had some nice things to say. He said, quote, "He is now the only candidate that has actually done something to impact gun violence. He is the only candidate that has done something to deal with reducing health care costs by helping to keep people healthy via sugar-associated taxes." Remember that?
The nanny state.
The nanny state, exactly. He got guff for that too, for trying to do that,
and for trying to ban plastic straw. I mean, I think he was ahead of his time with that stuff. You know, I think those are actually pretty good ideas, but.
And I think there are ideas that the average person can rally around.
Over. Yeah, I'm not the person he has to win over. He has to win over some Trump voters in Middle America.
And
I don't think he's going to be.
Who would you? Okay, so we know who Trump's base is, right?
We do.
Who do you think Mike Bloomberg's base could be?
It could be Trumpian pragmatists. So the people who voted for Trump because they wanted somebody who talks about business with business experience. So I'm not talking about the Trump base. I'm talking about the Trump voter that's not necessarily the base. So the base are the people who will vote for Trump no matter what. They don't care if he committed crimes with regard to Ukraine. They don't care about his behavior. They don't care about anything. There are a lot of people who voted for Trump but are not the Trump base, and that's who Bloomberg could win over. And I think he could. I mean, that's, it's people who run a small business or have one in the family, and they thought Trump was right when he said, regulations are strangling business in America. A lot of people agree with that. Somebody who knows something about the business sector, which honestly very few of the Democrats actually do. Joe Biden in government his whole life. Elizabeth Warren been an academic her whole life. That's not business. Pete Buttigieg worked for a little while in the private sector, but he's only 37. He actually does know. I think he does talk the talk on business. And then Bernie Sanders, who has sort of had a lot of odd jobs before getting into government, and he just wants to take everything away from business. He wants the government to manhandle business. So I think,
and also Mike Bloomberg has a track record of running.
He actually has a great resume.
In the country.
He has a great resume.
Right. So you're right. I think it is most of this for him is going to be in the messaging.
it's going to be in the intangibles of connecting with voters,
Right.
and it really matters. So,
I think I see a lot of stumping in Mike Bloomberg's future.
I don't think he was considered a great stumper when he was
He
New
wasn't,
York
but-
mayor, right? I mean,
He's going to have to take a crash course, Rick.
at the age of 77, it seems a little late.
I remember when I worked for the company, he took Spanish lessons so that he could better relate to
And
the
apparently
Spanish population.
he gives it the old college try in Spanish, but
He
if
does.
you
Gotta
speak
give him credit.
Spanish, you cringe. That's my understanding.
Yes,
I don't
it is
speak
true.
Spanish, so I
But you know
cannot.
what? Regardless, this race just got a
you
heck
know
of a
what?
lot more
I actually-
more interesting.
I say, we're all sick of all these, the conventional wisdom is we're all sick of all these candidates. Can we get rid of, 2/3 of these or all of them except for 3, let's say? I'm fine with Bloomberg jumping in. Why not? There's no rule that says he can't.
Well, now that you've said it, he feels better, Rick.
Thank you. Sure. Come on by and join our podcast. I mean, honestly, the Democratic candidates are uninspiring, and that is why guys like Bloomberg are saying this is not good enough.
All right, a lot to watch for, listen for in the coming weeks and months. We'll be talking about all of this a lot more on future podcasts. But for the meantime, thanks so much for being with us. Be sure to follow me at Alexis TV News.
And me at Rick J. Newman.
Be
Be
well.
nice.
Be well and be nice.